Hello class, today we're going to talk about section 3.4, which is direct variation. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to graph direct variation equations and write and solve direct variation equations. Direct variation is an equation that follows the form y is equal to kx, where k cannot equal 0. So it'll look something like y is equal to negative 7x, or y is equal to 2/3 x. It's just going to be y is equal to some number in front of x. It will always go through the point 0, 0. If you look at the two examples that I gave up there, negative 7 times 0 is equal to 0, 2/3 times 0 is equal to 0. Any number times 0 is equal to 0, so that is why it is always going through the point 0, 0. And the other piece of vocab is the constant of variation. That is the fancy name for the k. So with that first example, negative 7 is the constant of variation. With the second example, 2/3 is the constant of variation. One thing to note about the constant of variation and slope. So if we are looking at from last section, remembering finding slope, we need x1, y1, x2, y2. Plugging them into our slope formula, we take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and I end up with an answer of 3/4. If you notice the direct variation equation that they give us, the constant of variation is 3/4 as well. So in a direct variation equation, the constant of variation is equal to the slope, or is the same thing as the slope. So we can use that to help us graph these equations. As indicated on the first slide, 0, 0 is always a point on our graph. So I can put that on automatically. Then we're going to use this idea of slope to help us find the second point on our line. So right now we have the equation y is equal to 2x. We need to turn that into a fraction. So I need to figure out 2 divided by something is equal to 2. In that case, it's 1. So if you have a whole number of some sort, you can always put the 1 on the bottom to turn it into a fraction. If your slope is already written as a fraction, you don't need to add in that over 1 part. So what that slope is telling us is that we are going 2 up and 1 over. So our new point ends up at 1, 2. So we have our second point, and then we can go ahead and graph that line. Again, when you're graphing, you're going to use a straight edge and go all the way through the entirety of the graph and add those arrows onto the end when you are done. So what we did here, we graphed 0, 0 first, turned our slope into a fraction because it was just a whole number. If it's already a fraction, you don't have to take that step. Use the slope to help us find the second point on the graph. Top number tells you up or down, bottom number tells you right or left, and then we connected those 2 points with our straight edge all the way through the graph, arrows on the end. Go ahead and try graphing this one on your own. Starting our point at 0, 0, going up 5, to the right 7, connecting our points and drawing in that line. If you have questions about that, please let me know when you get to class. The other thing we want to be able to do today is write direct variation equations based on word problems. If y varies directly with x and y is equal to 98 when x is equal to 14, find y when x is equal to negative 4. Key thing that it tells us is that it varies directly, which is a direct indication of direct variation. So the first thing we need to do is find that k value. It tells us when y is equal to 98, x is equal to 14. So I can plug that into my equation to figure out k. y is equal to 98, k we don't know, and x is equal to 14. To solve that, divide both of those by 14, and I end up with an answer of k is equal to 7. So now we have our equation with our k value. Y is equal to 7x. We know that whatever output is, it's going to be multiplied by 7. We want to figure out the answer for when x is equal to 4. So I'm going to plug in y is equal to 7 times negative 4, giving us an answer of negative 28. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Solving for k, you get an answer of 4, then making sure that it tells you the y value to plug in for this time. So making sure you said negative 2 is equal to 4x. Solving, you get negative 1/2, written either as a fraction or a decimal. If you have questions about this or anything else in the lesson, please let me know when you get to class.